Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. You know, here on this channel, we do not shy away from controversial topics. And Teofimo Lopez has absolutely drenched himself in controversy in an interview with Punch Drunk Boxing. So we're going to explore this. We're going to play the defense and the prosecution, as we always do on this channel. Talk about some of the points where he may be right about. And we're going to also talk about the areas where his argument becomes undermined somewhat. So he said in the interview, this is the thing, commentators are the ones that convince everybody that someone else is winning. So watch the Kambosos fight without commentators, watch my last fight without the commentators, and you will see the results. In other words, the Sandor Martin fight. At the fighters meeting, I dissed Andre Ward and Timothy Bradley in front of ESPN's production for all the affiliation and corruption that they do. And what happened? I put more weight on my back. And all that they were talking about right away when I slipped with the first knockdown is that, oh, he's hurt, is what Timothy Bradley shouted. They called it right away. He then began to insult them, and then he said, but that's the problem, I don't ride off that. And just to put it on the spot, this is my last fight with ESPN. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. This is why this fight with Josh Taylor means everything to me. If they want the black fighters, they can keep them. I brought Bud Light to Top Rank. Now, this caused some controversy. Why did you bring up black fighters? You know, are you trying to bring in and inject race into this conversation? Something which we see happening an awful lot in the United States, let's be honest. From a British perspective, it really, the mind boggles how everything seems to be related to race in the US when it comes to boxing and pretty much any other societal issue. It's baffling to me, but it is what it is. But Teofimo Lopez Sr. then decided to reinforce and also to clarify some of his son's comments. And he said in an interview, when my son said Top Rank can stay with all their black fighters, you know what it is. When Devin Haney came into Top Rank, they're promoting him more than they're promoting my son, and he feels some type of way about that. You've got to understand this. We're fighting the top dude, bro. In other words, Josh Taylor. And we've got to get some respect for that. And he just feels some type of way like, oh, they just want to promote the black fighters. You've got Keyshawn Davis. You've got Shakur Stevenson. You've got Jared Anderson. So you've got all these fighters from Top Rank that are getting more recognition than my son is getting, and he's trying to fight the top dogs. So that's just something that he has inside of him, and he's not being promoted, being appreciated for what he's doing. He goes on to clarify and say, listen, all the calls of him being racist are ridiculous, that his son-in-law is black, his daughter is married to a black man, and that there's never been an issue with any of that. He grew up with black people in the projects, he's saying, so he's not sure why people are trying to make out as though these are racially motivated comments. He's simply seeing this as factual, that one demographic is being promoted over another. Now let's talk about this. You know, one could argue, a cynic could argue, remember we're going to play the defense and the prosecution. A cynic might argue that because Bob Arum was accused by Terence Crawford of not knowing how to promote black fighters, that he decided to respond to this. There's a pending court case, and Bob Crawford has still not managed to get the Errol Spence fight over the line. So in the meantime, if Bob Arum helps create stars that are African American, when it goes to court, he can turn around and say, well, we did a pretty good job with promoting these African Americans, Mr. Crawford. You still haven't got your fight over the line, and this just adds weight to Top Rank's case in court. That's one potential method that a cynic will look at this, in which case Teofimo Lopez may very well look at this and say, I'm not being pushed in the same way as certain other fighters are being pushed. Another way of looking at it is simply a question of business. I had a quick Google search, and there are 1 million or just over 1 million Honduran Americans in the United States. Teofimo Lopez, of course, is from Honduras. African Americans, according to Pew Research, which I, again, like I said, I've looked up online, account for 43 million of Americans. So from a sheer marketing perspective, if you are looking to tap into a fan base to create a superstar, you are going to have more success with that specific demographic. Now, that doesn't mean this is racist per se. It's a question of green being the color that is that Top Rank would be interested in, money. It's the same reason, guys, that here in the United Kingdom, where I believe British fight fans are the best fans in the world, or certainly among them, if there's any group of fans that turns out every single time, creates an incredible atmosphere, lifts fighters on their shoulders and creates them into stars, it's British fight fans. Had Derek Chisora, I know he's of Zimbabwean origin, right, but he's British, he comes down with a British flag. So remember, we're not talking about race here, we're talking about national affiliations. Had Derek Chisora been American, had he been Russian or something like that, he would have disappeared a long time ago. But the British fight fans have bought into him. The British media is a powerful media with international influence. And so he's lifted, he's emancipated through the love of the British fight fans. And so when you look at certain fantastic fighters, take a look at somebody like Murat Gassiev. What a brilliant heavyweight he is. Had he been British, had he been Mexican, had he been African American, he would have had more of a push. That doesn't mean that the promoters involved with Murat Gassiev or the promoters involved with the other fighters that are from those nations, whether they're British fighters, whether it's Andy Ruiz, whether it's Jared Anderson, whoever it might be, it doesn't mean that they're looking at this and thinking from a racially motivated perspective to try and put somebody down. Remember, racism is ultimately the belief that one group of people is biologically inferior to another, and you are seeking to persecute along those lines. So if you're looking at somebody and he's a black fighter and you're thinking, I don't want to give him an opportunity, like was the case many, many decades ago, where you'd have fantastic black fighters that would not be given world title shots, for instance, that would be racist. But if you're saying Teofimo Lopez, there's a limit, there's a ceiling as to how much money we can get back from him, as an investor, you are going to be limited into how much you're willing to invest in Teofimo Lopez. You understand that? Now, in terms of Top Rank and promoting fighters of specific demographics, the one fighter that I thought they've done a terrible job with is Josh Taylor. Because going back to this British thing, how can a fighter be as good as Josh Taylor with the CV that he's got and not be a superstar? Had Josh been with Matchroom or Queensberry, I think he would have been a superstar. If he was with them during the period of time that he was with Top Rank. We're talking about an undisputed champion, or he was fighting for the undisputed title against Ramirez, and you had to get the fight on Fight TV here in the UK. So he's done a terrible job. Many people will accuse him of doing a really poor job with Bud Crawford too, though. And Bud, of course, is African American. So is it a case of Top Rank just dropping the ball on specific fighters rather than it being racially motivated? The other thing that you also have to consider, Teofimo, is that, yes, it's true. You've been in there. Your CV is superb. You've been in there with top class fighters. The performance against Richard Comey was exceptional. The performance against Lomachenko was superb. From a tactical perspective, the execution of it, absolutely brilliant. When you did lose to Kambosos, and you did lose, this was not a case of the commentators fooling the world. You were in the top 10 pound for pound. Deservedly so. Superb fighter, superb CV. And a lot of the times, the misconception from the public is what can shape a narrative. So when he's criticised, for instance, for his performance against Sandor Martin, that's because people are sleeping on how good Sandor Martin is. That was a very good win for Teofimo Lopez. That is a CV building victory. But because people are writing off Sandor Martin, this Spaniard, this European coming over here who's not really a puncher, Teo should be smashing him up, right? I know he's had a shock win here or there, but it's only Sandor Martin. He's not getting the respect he deserves. So because of that, Teofimo is then looked at, expected to smash him up. When it's a harder fight, people look down on Teofimo Lopez. But, Teo, what did you say post-fight in the ring? You were caught on camera asking whether you've still got it. In other words, you have doubts about yourself. If you have doubts about yourself, your promoter, yes, of course, is going to continue to promote you, but he too may be having doubts about investing in you. He too is going to be looking at Shakur Stevenson and saying, this is potentially the future of boxing. Of course, I'm going to put this kid on a pedestal. He's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world if you're talking about talent, and there's only a matter of time before he proves it. You're looking at Jared Anderson and you're saying, listen, man, if we can get another American heavyweight who's going to become a superstar and a heavyweight champion of the world, my word, think about the money that could come there. They've also got Richard Torres on their books. And Richard Torres is another one who could potentially become a serious player in the heavyweight game. So they'll be looking at that and they'll be saying, there's a lot of greening to be made here. You look at somebody like Keyshawn Davis. Keyshawn's last performance was superb. It was so good, in fact, that if he was to get in a ring with Tank Davis, I would suspect that because he hasn't gone the rounds, Tank Davis is going to get him later in the fight. But let me tell you something. Tank better knock him out. Even at this early stage of his career, if Tank doesn't stop Keyshawn Davis, he's in trouble. That's how good Keyshawn is as a technical boxer. So, of course, they're going to promote these fighters, Teo. Why? Because they're putting on shows, they're flying, and their ceiling is massive. You're the one that lost to Kambosos. You're the one that, according to your own interpretation, didn't shine against Sandor Martin. So you can't be blaming other people. Now, I can understand if you're saying, if I was Mexican, if I was African American, if I was British, I would have been pushed more. I've got extra mountains to climb. I've got extra hurdles to overcome. I get that. That would not be an unfair statement. But to hold it against people for pushing certain talents because there's a higher ceiling there for them to make money, to me, that just sounds like bitterness. Get in there. If you go and do beat Josh Taylor, you're going to catapult yourself back into that pound for pound list. Here's your moment. Now, in fairness to Teofimo Lopez, because like I said, we always try to play the defense and the prosecution. If I'm going to look at this another way, had any of the aforementioned fighters had the level of CV that he had, they would have been promoted in a much better way. Again, that doesn't mean it's racist. It's just to do with what's potentially there to make money for Top Rank. So, like I said, that reinforces the idea that Teofimo probably has further obstacles to overcome than anybody else. And it is unfair. Had Gennady Golovkin been African-American, you think he'd be getting treated in the way he's treated in terms of his CV? Mexican, would they be saying the same things that they're saying about his CV now? British? Of course not. But he's Kazakh. And that's the reality. And you have a lot of Eastern Europeans that have to jump through hoops. Alexander Usyk, the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. Think about the level of CV this guy's got. And the fact of the matter is, something that a lot of people did not like when I was saying it, but it is a fact. He is the significant B-side when he's going to face Tyson Fury. And people didn't like that. It's a fact. He was the B-side when he fought Tony Bellew and he got 20% despite being the undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world. Okay? That's business. It's not fair, but it's business. So Teofimo, I don't think he was being racist here, to be honest with you. I don't. He didn't say anything degrading about any specific race. He feels as though he's being mistreated. And listen, he does have obstacles to overcome, but it's the way of life. It is what it is. It's just a reality. And this is your moment. If you can go out there and get the job done against Josh Taylor, you catapult yourself back into superstardom. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Is Bob Arum motivated by race, or is he just motivated by the green? What do you make of Teofimo Lopez's comments? Is he just in a weird place mentally, or do you sympathize with some of the things that he's saying and you do feel that there is a level of unfairness in general in the sport, in the way fighters with big fan bases behind them are covered in certain ways? What do you make of his comments regarding commentators? One thing I'll say is I definitely felt he lost the fight to George Kambosos. Against Sandor Martin, I do think he did better than the commentators suggested. But generally speaking, Teofimo aside, it is a fact that commentators really do influence the public narrative. They really do. But does that mean they necessarily have an agenda that goes beyond just who the promoted fighter is? Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.